Picture a strawberry field outside Oxnard, California. 12,000 pounds of fruit ripe and ready. The growers planted in February. They knew exactly what they would need at harvest. 40 workers, maybe 50.
Tuesday morning, the crew chief makes the calls. Nobody picks up. 3 workers stopped showing up last week. 2 more last night. Word moved through the camp faster than any government memo. Ice is in the valley.
By Thursday, the fruit goes soft on the vine. By Friday, it is compost. The grower walks his rows for an hour and then drives home without saying a word to his wife.
This is not hypothetical. This happened. It is happening right now, this season, in the agricultural counties of California, Florida, Texas, and Georgia.
But the question we are asking today is bigger than one field on one Tuesday. What happens to the whole country if we run the experiment all the way out? What does America actually look like with no immigrants?
I'm going to argue something almost nobody in this fight wants to hear. Both sides are lying to you. The activists who tell you immigrants are an economic miracle are selling a fairy tale. The restrictionists who tell you deportation will fatten your paycheck are selling a different fairy tale. The truth is colder, stranger, and more interesting than either pitch.
Let's run the numbers.
Start with the absurd version. What if there had never been immigrants, ever? The Mayflower turns around at the sight of land. The Irish stay in Cork. The Italians stay in Naples. The Jews die in Europe. The Chinese never lay a foot of railroad track. The Mexicans never crossed what was, until 1848, their own country.
You don't get America. You get a continent with about 600,000 indigenous people and a lot of buffalo.
So the question has to be more honest. We can't subtract the people who built the country. We can only ask what happens if the supply line shuts off now.
Forget Ellis Island. Forget the photograph of your great-grandmother holding a wicker suitcase. Imagine that on the 1st of January 2025, you close the door on all immigrants. Nobody new comes in. The 53 million foreign-born people already here pretend they vanish overnight.
What happens to the country in 5 years? In 20? In 50?
That is the experiment. And it turns out the United States has already tried a version of it. In fact, 2 of them.
In 1924, Congress passed the Johnson-Reed Act, quotas based on the 1890 census. The intent was openly stated: shut off the flow of Italians, Russians, Jews, and anyone the eugenists at Harvard had decided was inferior stock. The bill's champions promised exactly what the restrictionists promise today: higher wages for American workers, stronger national identity, a return to a better, whiter, more familiar America.
And did it work?
2 economists, Leah Booston at Princeton and Ran Abramitsky at Stanford, spent years building a data set of American towns and cities matched to the national origin mix of their immigrant populations before 1924.
The towns that lost the most immigrants because of the quotas became the natural experiment. If the restrictionists were right, those towns should have seen native-born wages climb.
They didn't. Wages went down. Native-born workers in the most affected places earned less, not more. The mining industry, which had relied on immigrant labor, contracted. In rural areas, farmers stopped hiring and bought tractors.
In cities, employers replaced European immigrants with internal migrants and with Mexican and Canadian workers who weren't covered by the new quotas at all. The white American factory worker the law was supposed to protect ended up working a worse job for less money.
This is not a left-wing think tank's opinion. It is published in the American Economic Journal, peer-reviewed, replicated.
We keep going back to this study because it should end an entire branch of the immigration debate. The United States tested the theory and the theory lost. And yet the same promise gets recycled every 20 years like it's brand new.
You can have your nostalgia, you can have your wall. You cannot have both your wall and a raise.
And now here is where we lose some of you on the left.
The American fertility rate is 1.56. The replacement rate is 2.1. American women are not having enough babies to replace the population. This is true for white women, black women, Asian women, and increasingly true for Hispanic women as well.
Religious conservatives are not having enough babies. Secular liberals are not having enough babies. Now, the reasons differ and we don't want to go into them, but the arithmetic doesn't. The Congressional Budget Office now projects that without immigration, the American population starts shrinking in 2030. Deaths exceed births permanently.
Look across the Pacific. Japan peaked at 128 million people in 2008. By 2050, the country will have lost 19 million working-age people. Japan closed itself to immigration for decades and then quietly cracked the door open about 10 years ago because the math became impossible.
There are now towns in rural Japan with no children, schools converted into nursing homes, tax bases that no longer fund road repair, robots delivering soup in restaurants because there's nobody to wait the tables.
This is not a possible American future. This is the only American future without immigration. Pick any number you want for native fertility. Run it through the math does not work.
Now here is where we may lose some of you on the right. We are also not going to fix this with a baby bonus. South Korea spent $200 billion trying. Hungary, Poland, France, Singapore, Russia, every country that has tried to bribe its citizen into having more children has failed. Some have slowed the decline, but none have reversed it.
You can want America to be a country with closed borders. You can want America to be a country with a working economy and a growing population. But you cannot have both. The wall costs you the country.
Now let me tell you the thing that should make every libertarian listening to this episode pull over to the side of the road.
Undocumented immigrants paid $96.7 billion in taxes in 2022. Of that, $25.7 billion went into Social Security. $6.4 billion went into Medicare.
They paid Social Security contributions for retirement benefits they will never, under current law, be allowed to claim. They paid Medicare taxes for healthcare they cannot legally access.
The undocumented worker in the meat plant in Iowa. The woman with the borrowed Social Security number cleaning hotel rooms in Phoenix. The framer on the new house going up in your subdivision. These are the people who deposited money into the retirement of every American boomer for the last 4 decades.
The Social Security trustees know this. They build it into their projections. Bump net immigration up by 100,000 a year and the trust fund's actuarial balance improves by 0.1% of taxable payroll. The math is published.
So when you hear a politician say immigrants are a drain on the system, ask, which system? Because the largest, most expensive social program in the federal budget is being propped up in part by the people that program will never pay out a dime to.
Now consider the cost of the alternative. Penn Wharton modeled a sustained 10-year mass deportation. The verdict, GDP down 4.9% by 2054.
Wages down for 63% of American workers, including high-skilled ones. The deportation itself runs almost $1 trillion in direct outlays. And the average American household ends up poorer, not richer.
Florida already ran a smaller version of this. Senate Bill 1718 signed into law in 2023. Within months, agricultural counties were reporting crops rotting on the ground and contractors short of crews.
The bill's own legislative sponsors went on record saying they had not understood what they voted for. The people who passed the law were surprised by what the law did. That is what experimentation looks like in real time.
Pivot now to the part of the economy that decides whether America is still a greater power in 2050.
60% of the top American AI startups have an immigrant founder. 70% of those founders first came to the United States on a student visa. The founder of NVIDIA, the most valuable chip maker in the world, was born in Taiwan and came over as a child. The CEO of Microsoft, born in Hyderabad, India. The CEO of Google, born in Madurai, India. Of the founders of OpenAI, one was born in Russia. Tesla, of course, was built by a man from Pretoria.
46% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by an immigrant or the child of one. Together, those companies generate $8.6 trillion in revenue. If you ranked them as a country, they would be the third largest economy on earth, behind only the United States and China.
Pull that thread to its end. Without immigration, the United States loses its race with China for artificial intelligence within a decade. Not because America has fewer dollars, not because US universities are subpar.
Because the Chinese government can draft talent from a population of 1.4 billion. And the American answer to that has always been to attract the smartest people from the other 6 billion humans on the planet who would rather build something here than there.
Close the door and you have seeded the 21st century. That is not a partisan claim. That is an arithmetic claim. China's leaders, by the way, understand this perfectly. They have been studying the H-1B program for 2 decades, trying to figure out how to copy it.
1 in 5 recipients of the Medal of Honor was born in another country. 45,000 foreign-born service members wear the American uniform right now. The pool of 18-year-olds willing to enlist is shrinking, along with the rest of the population. Military recruiters have been quietly sounding this alarm for a decade.
The Civil War, the war that preserved the Union and ended slavery, was won by an army that was 40% immigrant. 40%. Without those soldiers, there is no Gettysburg, there's no Vicksburg. There may well be no United States in its current form.
Walk into a 4th of July cookout. Hot dog? German. Hamburger? Also German by way of Hamburg. Pizza? Italian. Fried chicken with seasoning that traveled from West Africa on slave ships. Ketchup, which started as Chinese fish sauce before the British remade it with tomatoes. The beer in your hand, brewed by the great grandsons of Bavarians. Strip the immigrant contribution out of the American table and you have corn, turkey, and squash.
This is the America the hardest secessionists say they want to return to. A diet of corn and squash. A labor force of tractors and nobody to run them. A social security check that doesn't clear. A military half the size. An AI sector ceded to Shanghai.
The pro-immigration left is selling a sentiment. The picture of the immigrant as a noble striver who never commits a crime, never crowds a school district, never makes a town feel unfamiliar to the people who grew up there. That picture is false. Real immigration creates real friction.
It changes neighborhoods. School districts absorb students mid-year speaking 8 languages. Some low-skilled American workers, particularly in agriculture and construction, do face wage competition. Crime rates among immigrants run lower than among the native-born on average, but the average is cold comfort to the family of a specific victim. The friction is not nothing. The left's habit of waving it away is a big part of why this debate has gone so dishonest for so long.
And the anti-immigration right is selling a fantasy. The picture of an America that would be richer, whiter, and more itself if the US sent everyone home. That picture is also false. There's data going back 100 years.
Every time America has tried it, the country has become poorer, smaller, older, and weaker. Native-born wages fall, crops rot, hospitals understaffed. The pension fund runs lighter. The Pentagon misses its recruiting targets. The AI lab in Sunnyvale opens a new office in Toronto.
The honest position is one neither side wants to run on. Immigration is real friction in exchange for real survival. You cannot have a growing economy, a solvent social security system, a winning technology sector, and a functioning military without it. You can pretend otherwise for one election cycle, but you cannot pretend otherwise for one generation.
Pick a country with friction and a future, or pick a country without friction and without a future. That is the choice. There is no third option, no matter what either party tells you in the next ad break. I'm Harsh.
And I'm Vaishali, and this is the Victory Code Podcast.